Here we are, punters, part 2, Shadow DK.
Shadow DK, no Emerald today, but not a bad replacement pots, except no beer on the table. We'll find somewhere, there's a couple of good pubs around here for a bite afterwards.
Lovely cool day in Melbourne too, for a change.
For yesterday. We've been lucky with the weather in that regard. We've had the real stinkers, and there's the cool changes come through every time. We haven't put a couple together, so normally January, you can get a few stinkers together and it can get pretty tough. But
and we had a race-free Sunday yesterday because of the hot weather, but it's sale moved to today. And normally that's a meeting that I'd normally get a little bit involved with. Because they moved it to Monday, I just decided that I wasn't going to change my normal routine.
I was the same.
If I'd have got involved there today, it would have, because I use Mondays. I get up early on Monday mornings to do a lot of review work and ratings and that sort of thing. If I'd have done sale, that would have settled that back. And then the week coming, when we've got a good for me, a good Sandown meeting and a good Caulfield meeting coming, and there's Moonee Valley and other meetings, and they're thrown in.
Well, I had a quick look this morning just to peruse, and then I saw the track was soft 6 and soft 7 in the straight from some overnight rain they had last night after a hot day. So that was I agreed with your sentiments there. So
that's a red flag. And the way sale's been racing.
So anyway.
I mean, I wouldn't. If you asked me now to have a guess, so here we are. It's currently 1 o'clock or something. So we haven't seen any races at sale yet today. If you ask me what the pattern's going to be there today, I wouldn't have a clue.
No,
until I saw a few races, I just wouldn't know.
Look at that. Half like one that was in Barry 1, and I thought, oh god.
Well, they're back to the true, so that could be okay being on the rail, but if they for whatever reason, because the sale's been playing off the rail, even though they've been wider rail positions, I mean, you'd be guessing. So anyway, I mean so my point to punters is don't let. Just because the races are on, you don't have to be involved. Pick the meetings that suit you. Target the meetings that suit you. Like I know I'll be able to walk Sandown and Caulfield. I'll have a really good idea what the pattern's going to be. I'll feel comfortable there. I'll be able to bet confidently. So
well, that's what I was saying. With playing in Gippsland area is not really one of my strengths. So Moe, Sale, those joints, but Warrnambool's on tomorrow. I like betting in the Western Districts. I tend to have a better feel for the horses and the trainers and everything down there. So easy to tune back in there.
And the good part about Warrnambool is you'd have a really good handle on the normal patterns of the various rail positions. And then you've got a good man like Graham Hoy that always tweets something out for the punters. Hallelujah, good on you, Graham.
Good man, Graham. Yeah. Mate, one thing I wanted to ask you about, just doing the post race in the last few weeks, and I've noticed this as a real pattern, particularly at Sandown and Pakenham, is I suppose from the mid distance, or say 1200s maybe up, is the slow early tempos. They're walking early in the races and really just sprinting home the last 600. And it's not just one. This has become a real pattern that I've noticed. And it was just last Monday was nearly as bad as I've seen it when the French girl race and things like that. It's nearly as slow and early half as the race that you'd see. So you're a man who sort of specialises in those two tracks particularly, and seems to get your thoughts.
Yeah, well, when we're talking about Sandown, I think it's important for the punters to separate the two tracks, treat them differently. They have subtle characteristics that they are definitely two separate tracks. So there's the hillside, which is the outer track, and the lakeside, which is the inner one. And so they share the back straight. They've got their own individual turns. Okay, so the turn on the lakeside one is tighter and it's downhill, whereas the turn on the hillside track is wider and it's flat. So the downhill part on the hillside track is once they straighten, coming down that dip. They call it the Corrigan dip or whatever.
Corrigan dip,
that's what I want to call it. And because you're out, and in the home straight, so they share the home straight to a degree, but say if the rail's at 10 metres on the lakeside track, that's about where the true rail is on the hillside track. Okay, if that makes sense to the punters. And so once you get out that outside 20 metres of the track, particularly on the home turn on the hillside track, which is where the downhill run starts, there's quite a significant camber there. And the horses that get fanned wide on the hillside track, once they straighten up, they come down that dip, they get to the bottom of that dip. So the horse on the rail, compared to the horse that's, say, 6 or 7 wide, the horse on the rail is much lower on the track. So the last 400 metres of the race, it's running uphill along the rail, whereas that other horse is out wide on the track, it's higher. It's still running uphill, but it's not running as much uphill. And often what happens with these horses is under fatigue, they start to hang in, and so it's getting an advantage hanging in as it gets tired. Whereas the horse on the rail, the only place he can hang if it's getting tight is out. That increases the uphill, and that's to me why on the hillside track in particular, you often see races that completely change in the last 100 metres. So anyway, what I'm doing is just pointing at the differences in the lakeside and the hillside track. So the lakeside track's turn is a lot tighter. The run home's shorter. So on the back straight, where the distance markers are. So if you look at the 1,000 metre mark on the lakeside track, that's the same point as the 1,200 metre mark is on the hillside track. So when they change the meters, they just switch the signs around, okay? Because that bigger circumference turn from that point on is 200 metres further. So there's exactly 200 metres difference in the distances from a fixed point on the rail on the back straight, just to show people the difference. So they come around a tighter turn on the lakeside track, they come downhill, which is a really important part of the race. They straighten up and they've got a much shorter run home. That track's not quite as, it's not as, the camber's not as significant in there, so there's not as much an advantage getting out wider or higher on the profile on the lakeside track. So, you know, the on-pace runners can get a real advantage coming down the hill, accelerating down the hill, then straightening up and pinching a gap and holding on. So, why do the jockeys then tend to ride so slowly early, just sort of meander down the hill and try and sprint home on the lakeside track? I mean, that's just the pattern that happens so often, which is such an advantage for the on-pace runners. And I think the whole pattern at Sandown Lakeside is about that. It is about the fact that they tend to get those on-pace positions fairly cheap. Then they're able to build their momentum coming down the hill, straighten up, and off they go. And it takes a big performance from the back to beat them, even though there's no track bias that's creating it. It's about the tempo.
It's about the tempo.
It's about the tempo. So I just think the jockeys need to look at how they're riding Sandown Lakeside, you know, particularly at that 12, 13, 14, 15, 1600 metre starts that all start in the back straight. Even the 1800 metre, well, the 1800 metres are not. They might have extended that chute on the lakeside. It doesn't matter. I mean, the race that start in the back straight there, those on-pace positions are a premium. They shouldn't be gifted. You should have to earn them. And the other part about Sandown is in the back straight they're running uphill. They come down the hill and they run uphill in the home straight. That's not many courses are like that. And the camber on the back straight is significant. So when the barriers are there, it can depend on the rail position, but the wider draws are higher on the track. They come out of the gates, they're running downhill.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, you like the wider draws, yeah.
There's a natural advantage in those wider draws. So I mean, they're all little subtle factors, and it depends on the horse and who's what. But you know, we saw it the other week. You know, a race fit tin hat from a wide draw. You know, just having to only beat Gold Mag first up from an inside draw, like, you know, there's such an advantage there for a horse like Tin Hat to use with Craig Williams riding.
Yep.
So that, you know, there's some of the subtleties of Sandown. So I think the answer to your question is, DK, that the jockeys just haven't got riding. They're not treating riding Sandown Lakeside differently enough to Hillside that they need to, in my opinion. So as with everything in racing, it's subtle. It's not just, right, we've got to be out of the gates like we are at 1,200 metres at Moonee Valley, where the start, the first corner comes up in 200 metres, you know.
Get going, yeah.
It's not like that, but it's just different to Hillside, and they have to treat it that. And the other difference with Hillside, of course, is, first of all, the Hillside has 1,000 metre races, whereas Lakeside doesn't. So the chute start at Sandown's only for the Hillside meetings, and the shortest circle race or back straight start race on the Hillside track is 1,300. So there are different distances in play there. So I mean, we tend to have more 1,200 and 1,400 metre races on the Lakeside course, where at Hillside there's more 13s and 15s. Yeah, so and those middle distances, like, you know, 13 and 15 there.
They're funny.
There's a subtleness to them, you know.
Yeah, no, I noticed that.
Then we moved to Pakenham. So Pakenham, here we are. Racing's got its new plot of land, going to build its own course.
Jewel in the crown.
Made the measure, jewel in the crown. Like, just, here we are. We're going to build a big track. We're going to build a big track, you know, with a nice cambered turn. It's going to suit all the horses. and everything, but the experience is once you do that, if you take away the motivation to lead, you get what we're getting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not easy to lead and win at Pakenham. It's not impossible, but it's just not easy.
Flemington.
So you've got to, it's like Flemington. You've got to judge it really well. It's got to be really well judged. And then, the other part of Pakenham that's a huge factor is it's Kikuyu. So it needs the height of summer to be at its best. So right now, it's a good place to bet. In November, to me, it's really marginal.
Yeah.
So it needs to get to late January before you really want to start betting there. And then it'll be good right through until April, pretty much. And then in winter, it's cactus. It's just too cold for that type of turf. But so it's a different surface. Like, it's so different walking on it to the ryegrasses of all the city tracks, the Kikuyu. Like, you walk on top of the Kikuyu, whereas the rye, your feet go down into it and you actually walk on the profile. So it's just it's a completely different type of turf. But then in the last few weeks, DK, at Pakenham, as the track's really come into its own, height of summer, hot weather, it's really healthy, it's going gangbusters, and you have these slow tempos. The on paces have been sort of dominating those meetings. Tempo related though.
All tempo related, yeah.
So again, I think the jockeys aren't adjusting to that change. You know, they're riding Pakenham now in the height of summer like it was
November,
pre-Christmas. You know, and I think they've got to change. I think right now, those on-pace positions at Pakenham should be a bit of a premium. That's always your best place to win a race from. It's not as, obviously the tighter tracks, the on-pace positions become more of a premium. But, at some point, there is a point, I'm not sure what the right way to describe it, where tempo trumps position. So there's a point where position, but soon as there's enough pressure or enough tempo in a race, then it swaps over. So, and that's one of the great puzzles that we have to solve as punters, is what's going to be more dominant here, position or...
Well, that's prime example was the maiden at, I think on the same day, race 1, Victory Kingdom, and Taxi. It's on the last Monday at Sandown. So...
I'm having trouble remembering, DK.
Yeah, race 1, Craig Williams went to the front, led all the way on the Animal Kingdom thing. Big, nice big horse. And Jamie Carr was on the second thing. And there's no speed in the race, and Victory Kingdom, the favourite, was grubby out of the gates on debut at Moonee Valley in that fast race, and behind Beers with Clint.
Right. Yeah. That was race 2.
It was race 2, sorry. It was race 2. She Shall Fly won race 1.
2-year-old,
So there's no speed, and the favourites can be a bit grubby out of the gates. Craig Williams in his pre-race report says, if it gets out of the gates and I can get up the front, this will be hard to beat. So Clint McDonald gets on the pre-race interview for the second favourite and says, we'll follow the favourite everywhere it goes. And it was really hard in the market because the automatic pricing and everything, you could easily have taken an advantage. You could have taken the spot in front of the leader.
Yes, yeah.
So Craig Williams has half missed it a half, but no intent from any other riders, not much from Jamie Carr on it because she wanted to take this in. So I got the softest lead of all time and sprinted home last 500 metres and won. Where they've said, regardless of the tempo, we are taking a sit.
We're going to follow the favourite.
Yeah. They didn't know, even if they'd gone out 30 lengths below tempo, they were going to follow the favourite. Yeah. So I mean, that's tempo over position. I mean,
I've got it all back in my head now, DK. So I'm thinking of that race. If Victory Kingdom misses the start here, is midfield on the fence.
Yeah.
In my view, it was still a probably $2.50 chance or a 40% chance of winning the race. If it begins well enough to hold the front, it's a $1.50 chance. That's how I priced the race. And I was just hoping that it didn't get crossed in that first 100 metres. So when I'm actually watching the race, as soon as it held the front like that, the race was
all over. Yeah. All over.
Yeah. And I think he won by 4 lengths or something, didn't it?
Yeah, just sprinted home. He just trot and cantered and sprinted home.
Yeah.
But the 2-1 heavily back, the second pick, because it had that Jamie Carr from the low draw and a possible map advantage if they wanted to use it. And we'll just... But it was just they declared they were going to take a sit regardless of the tempo, and it turned up they took a sit in a walk and been completely out-sprinted.
So it's worth the punters going to have a look at that, just looking at the first 50 metres of the race and look, was there an opportunity for one or more of the horses in that race to cross the favourite? There's nothing that drives me insane more than when you've opposed a favourite because the map's a bit sticky and there are horses that have the opportunity to cross it and then don't. I think the awareness of that, you know, if you can cross and put a favourite into an awkward spot, you've just made the race a lot easier to win, you know, for yourself. So, I mean, it happens, you know, most meetings will be a situation like that.
You know, any horses to follow? Anything jumped out? Any impressive from town?
Well, I just think, you know, we're in a new environment now, DK, as we discussed, and I think that, you know, my view is that it's likely that, I wonder whether it'll be a dominant situation or a competitive situation, but I think the Kieran Maher stable is the one.
It's the logical go-to for a lot of those horses, isn't it?
It's got the big light on it saying that they're likely to be the stable most likely to win the premiership. I suppose the Hayes stable will have something to say about that because they've got a lot of horses. So I'm going to have to put a lot of focus in on the Kieran Maher stable and just make sure I've got a really good hand. I mean, you know, it's not new, but just have the right handle on that stable because having a handle on the dominant stable is one of your key pillars as a punter.
Yep.
So.
And I see our mare resumed in Tassie. Pretty impressive. Did you see her?
I didn't see it, but I heard she won well.
She was last and just rounded them up and run 10 something for her last furlong or something. But so I think she's going around this week and by Mistress or whatever it is.
Yep.
But there's another nice horse going down there, Potts. I don't know if you saw its maiden win, Twilight Run. I think it won by 6 lengths at Geelong the other Sunday. Went like an absolute Learjet. And it's a really smart horse and it's going to Tassie, I believe. So it must be for one of the 3-year-old. I think it's a 3-year-old classics down there or something. So. I'd be tuning into it, punters. It's got untapped, that horse.
Yeah. With the you know, autumn and a lot of better horses coming through, DK, I've seen a lot of good performances at the provincials recently.
You just got to remember, it reminds you what time of the year it is.
Yeah.
There's a 2-year-old of Snowden's won the race, won at Geelong that same day, Twilight One run. It was 25 to 1. It's fucking flown.
Yeah, talented.
Like, talented. Yeah. Is it talented?
And it trialled all right. It trialled in the, you know, the same trial as the Kieran Maher filly that won on Saturday.
Yeah.
And was a really good trial. Yeah. How it went around 25.
Well, just can happen this time of year, I suppose. The spruik horses and things like that. Anyway.
Now, the other thing I just wanted to mention just quickly, DK, is I got an email from a guy that called up to us. I think he might have... And I don't want to say that because I was going to say he come to us because through Mark Raden, but that might be wrong. Might be someone else. I'm getting confused there. But he's a guy that started getting my stuff back in November anyway. He must have been watching our shows or Business of Betting podcast. I think he might have listened to that. His name's Will. I won't say any more than that, but you know, after being in the service from November right through to January, he wrote me a really good email over the weekend about results over 3 months and you know, not so the point is he's recording every result, and it's not just the stuff he's getting from me, his own betting and whatever else he does you know, he does some form in the Tassie races. And so he's recording every bet, he's looking at things at 3 months, and I just think, you know, just the nature of the sort of information that Will sent to me reflects really well on him, and that's the sort of attribute that I've seen in all the successful punters that I've met over the years. You know, so if you're trying to make a go of it and make a profit over the course of the year, and you're not recording every bet, and you're not looking at results in bigger chunks, so you're avoiding small samples. And the reason that that's important is one of the most difficult things to deal with in racing is the race-to-race emotions and the psychology of betting. So you've got to give yourself a process and a platform to deal with that. You know, you've got to recognise that that's part of the environment, and then it can be really difficult when you get beaten a close photo, a bad ride, a protest,
a few in a row,
you know. Horses gear braking, missing the start. I mean, there's a million things we could list that can be very, very frustrating when you're having a bad run. And like my punters will know, I had a difficult run over the spring, but we've bounced back really strongly because I don't react to any of that. And like I give myself a 2-minute grace after a race. For 2 minutes, I'm allowed to vent and carry on a bit if I want to.
Yeah,
but 2 minutes, it's all over. So and I never allow that to affect my future betting decisions.
Yep. 2 minutes is a good cap.
And that's it. So
well, I think being able to look at the numbers, I think shows you Horse Miller tweeted out one of his subscribers last night. Just all the numbers. He was recording all the bets and all the numbers, 7 days, monthly, yearly, and things like that. It's good. He just even through a good bad run. I mean, he's saying thanks. It's been a great service. But you just look at the numbers and always refer to them. and you know, follow being for the long haul sort of thing. You know.
Yep, and that's it. It's about that long haul's the
Yep.
the right way of doing it. So you got to do the right things. You got to put in the hard work. You got to be very surgical with your form analysis, both in review and preview. That's really important. When you identify betting opportunities, you've got to be aggressive. I'm always reminding myself to be more aggressive because I'm never aggressive enough with those really good opportunities.
Yeah, I love putting the confidence level on my race.
Yeah.
You know, it's got a G for good.
That's
You've got to talk yourself into it. Got to come on. There's an opportunity. Push.
It's not easy, but then as soon as the race is over, accept the result, record the result, move on, and then analyse your results with, you know, the bigger samples you're using, the better. And just keep going. And it's about winning constantly over time. It's not about one big coup.
No.
You know what I mean? Like the people that have.
And I used to bet like that. I used to love, you know, going off when I'm back to 25-1 winner and big coup and everything. But keeping it more like, instead of going like that, the more, you know, consistent, emotional.
Well, my pattern over 10 years, DK, has been like this. It's just slowly gone up. You know, in case I've had you know, then you start again, you have a bad run. But the point, you're always rising, you know what I mean? And that's been my pattern over a long period of time. Anyway, punters, that'll do us for today. Onwards and upwards for the industry. That's you know, the races will still be on this Wednesday, this Saturday. There'll be winners there for us to back, and you know, we've got to rely on the administrators and the integrity department to do their job well.
Yep.
So, cheers, punters.